Hello and welcome to episode 178 of Daryl Show Your Work. In this episode, I'll be monitoring preventing data exfiltration attempts. All right, so before I start, I'm going to give my usual reminder here to please check out I&E for their cybersecurity training and certifications. They range from red team penetration testing to blue team incident response and everything in between, which will gain you that hands-on knowledge that employers are looking for and that you could speak towards during interviews, on a resume and towards the skills portfolio. All right. So if you go to get.ine.com/Daryl, all right, and use product code INF 100 dash Brooks Tech at the checkout, you could get up to 10% off on any of your purchases for the exception of live virtual trainers. All right. So that link and promotion code would be in the show notes. And without further ado, let's get started. All right, so to begin my monitoring preventing of data exfiltrations, I'm going to be first starting out by capturing network traffic using Wireshark. All right, so in order to initiate that, I'm going to say sudo and Wireshark. All right, let's give it my password here. All right, so Wireshark is started. So I am going to be interacting with network interface ENS32. All right, so now that I got that going, I'm going to switch machines here. Right, so let's see. I believe the second one is right here. There it is, my Windows machine. All right, so let's log into this one. All right, let me see the credentials. All right, so I'm logging in as Alex Turner. All right, so the first thing I want to do, if you remember my previous video, we've onboarded Mr. Turner as a senior IT administrator. All right, so let's now with those put those administrative privileges to use. So I'm going to open up PowerShell with administrator privileges. All right, here's PowerShell. So I'm going to click Run as Administrator. All right, tell it yes. All right, so the first thing that I want to do is, as Alex Turner, I want to map a network drive to the shared customer database folder, and that's going to be on server 1. All right, so in order to do that, I'm going to put in the following command, and if I goof this up, then I'm gonna just paste it in there. But I'm at least try to make sure that my syntax is tight here. That much space. So there we go. All right. So again, what's going on here with this command is, again, as Alex Turner, I'm mapping the network drive to a shared customer database folder on server 1. All right, so making it accessible as my system's Z drive. All right, so just checking my syntax here. All right, We can see where I specified the drive as letter Z. All right, we linked it to server 1 and then the customer database. All right, so I want that to persist. All right, so let's see if I'm good here. It didn't like something database. I think I may have too much space there. Database. See, what did you like about that server? All right, let me check something here. I tried with my syntax, but let's see what I goofed up. I see. Okay. All right. Let's fix this. Forgot to add quotes around here around the server reference. So that should fix the problem. All right. So it looks like that was done successfully. All right. So now that I have a Z drive, I want to switch that drive. So I'm going to say command capital Z colon. All right, so now I'm in the Z drive. All right, so now I want to be able to connect to a FTP server. All right, to do some file transfers. So in order to do that, I'm gonna say FTP, and then the address I want to connect to is 192.168.100.110. All right. All right, so then I am Alex. All right, and then let's give it my password. It didn't like it. All right, let me see. Let me try. Yeah. All right, let me see. May just have to exit out of this and just go back in. All right, let's go back into the Z drive. All right, so let's try the FTP again. 92, 168, 100, 110. All right. Just making sure I'm putting in the right info. Still not liking it. Okay, I'm gonna just try one more thing here. All right, let me just paste that in because sometimes my keyboard acts up on me. And I question if that's what's happening when I'm putting in this password. There we go. So I think my keyboard was messing up there. All right. So now that I'm into the FTP server, next I want to upload the customers a database .cv file, CSV file. All right. So I'm gonna say put customers dash database. All right. So that's I'm gonna upload that file here. All right, looks like that's successful. So still waiting for it to fully complete here. All right, there we go. All right, so the customers-database.csv file, it contains the sensitive customer information like names, contact details, address, purchase history, and financial data. Unauthorized access to this file poses a risk to identity theft, fraud, and privacy breaches. All right. So now I'm going to switch back to the Ubuntu machine here. Right. So let's see. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna stop the packet filter, packet capture. All right. And then I'm gonna apply the FTP filter here, just so basically what this is going to do is just going to reduce the amount of packets that was captured to just those relevant to the FTP, and you should show me, all the just the traffic related to the FTP transfer that I just did. All right. See, that should. Okay, hold on, still filtering. All right, so the one thing that I wanted to do, and by using Alex's account to upload the file, once again, another example of the dangers of transferring anything using a plain text protocol such as FTP instead of something more secure like SSH, is that we can see several bits of information here of when I made that transfer of that customer database file. Okay, so one, we can see the password here that I entered in. All right, so this confirms that this is what was happening. Okay, that when I had an incorrect login, so what was happening is that I was manually entering in this password. This is the actual password, right? And then so it's supposed to be past W0RD explanation point, but then my keyboard was adding two explanation points, and that's why it kept failing. So this confirms that my keyboard was acting up on me, and inevitably why I ended up just pasting it in there. But we can see why I ended up when I entered in the username Alex, entered in the password. Okay, and then we can see all these others. Then we can see a blunder here. I think I just fat fingered it there. Okay. Okay, now we can see the successful login of Alex, and then the password. All right, and then we can see, all right, we can see the ports, and then we can also see, most importantly, the name of the document. All right, that was sent. All right, so I've shown in previous video. I'm not going to go into that here, but I've shown in previous video how we can actually extract files from packet captures. And an example that I showed before, I'll be going to upload that to something like a virus total, for analysis to see if, if the downloaded file or uploaded file in this case is malicious. But if I'm the attacker and I see this file, okay, and I know how to extract this type of document from the packet capture, then I could be able then to open that and be able to see, all the customer information, all the sensitive PII. So it would be recommended in the first place to use a secure protocol such as SSH to conduct this type of transfer, again, because it's going to be encrypted and not going to be in plain text, and and a potential attacker using a packet sniffer would not be able to deduce details like this, like the document name. And then on top of that, if for whatever reason you just had to use FTP, well, you could use a compensating control like password protecting the actual file, or giving the file itself a layer of encryption that can only be decrypted either but by using some sort of a security key. All right, so that's this particular example. All right, so next thing I wanted to do was I wanted to show how to monitor process creation with Wazoo. All right, so from where I am now, I'm actually going to go to where Wazoo is being hosted here on the network. So that is going to be HTTPS. I believe it is secure. All right, then local host. All right. All right. So there's Wazoo. Again, Wazoo, much like SIM, is a well, not like SIM, much like Splunk is a SIM solution. All right, so it's going to help monitor and aggregate those logs across the systems for us to be able to tell what's going on in the system, to see if we can notice any sort of anomalous behavior, and be able to, in this case, be able to link certain processes together to see be able to see if there's a security event or incident going on. So I'm gonna just click here, log in. All right, so now that I'm in, if I scroll down here to threat hunting, all right, so we can see, we look at this number, there are a lot of logs here. All right, so we're going to have to narrow this down. All right, I'd want to narrow this down to just any FTP related process. All right, so to do that, I'll have to actually create a new rule. So in order to do that, I'm gonna have to go back to the terminal, and so I can open up a new terminal here. I don't know if I go up here to do that. All right. Okay, so to create a new rules file for our Wazoo, all right, I'm going to actually use my Nano text editor here, and I'm going to write the following command here. All right, so I want to so the rules file that I want to modify is actually located in the following directory. And then the name of that file is going to be custom FTP rules. All right, since we're dealing with a rules file, it's machine readable, so it's going to be in XML. All right, and again, so ultimately, what my goal is in modifying this rules file, is to set a rule where Wazoo can specifically detect FTP related traffic. All right, so much like how we were able to detect that in Wireshark with applying a filter, where it's a bit more complicated in Wazoo, where I have to create a rule for it. But this is how it's done. All right, so then let me give it my password again. All right. Okay, so this is actually a lot to write, so I'm going to paste this line of code in, and then let me see. Give me a quick second. I want to check something on the Windows machine. Uh, okay. I just had to check something there. Well, let's see if I'm going to be able to copy this. I may have to write this in. I'm not sure. Well, yeah, it looks like I'm going to have to. All right, bear with me. Did that too. All right, almost there. Make sure that's all right. Okay. Close this rule tag. All right, let's close this group tag. Right. All right, now, oops, of course. Well, thank goodness it waited till the very end to screw up on me. All right. So let me just check my syntax briefly here. All right. So basically, this is going to flag. It's going to flag any type of FTP event data. It's going to set it to level 10 alert, and it's going to provide this message, this FTP client execution detected on Alex's machine. All right. So that's what this rule essentially is going to do, and it's going to flag that. So when I go and I look at all of those security events, then any event related to the most recent FTP execution is going to be is going to come up with this with this flag on it. We'll see how that works. All right, so I'm gonna say Control X to exit, and then Y to capital Y to save. All right, so now let's go back to, hold on, before that, or before, no, I don't want to go back to Wazoo yet. Actually, I need to restart with the Wazoo process in order for these changes to be applied into Persist. All right, so all right, in order to do that, I have to specify the directory that that the Wazoo control file is located in, and basically tell it to restart. Right, control. Then we want to tell it to restart. All right, just checking my syntax. That should be good. All right, so let's restart that. I didn't like something. Okay. Okay, something didn't land like inside the file. So let's go back. Okay, what don't you like? Rules. D. Okay, that's what it was. Oh, thank goodness I was able to catch that early. Okay, so I'm missing a quote here from 10. And I think that's what it's not allowing me to run this. So I'm gonna save and exit again. All right, So let's try to restart the process and let's see what happens. It still didn't. So now it's saying line 3. Okay. What did I fat finger this time? I forgot that. Okay, I see. Look at that. In my tag here, I forgot the underscore. All right. See if 3 times is the charm. 3 times the charm. All right, so let's restart that for me. All right, so okay, now that that's complete, I'm actually going to switch back to the Windows machine, and I am going to generate some new FTP traffic. All right, so I don't have to sift through prior logs and try to find what I did earlier. I'm just going to create some new traffic here. All right, so let's see. Um, well, let's see. I could just exit out and just go into FTP again, and that should suffice as far as generating that traffic. Because basically the rule set is it's going to just um, alert Wazoo to when FTP is being used in general. So honestly though, the best case scenario is for this organization just to close that port by default, all right, to harden its attack surface. But if for some reason they just have to have it open, but they don't want anybody to use it or want to be alerted when somebody uses it, this is how we do so. All right, so I'm gonna just go back to the Z drive. Right, then we just gonna say FTP 2 dot, there goes my keyboard again, dot 168 dot 110, right? All right, this time I learned my lesson. I am just going to paste that password in there. So let's go back to where I have that jotted down here. All right, there we go. All right, so that should suffice as far as generating the event data that I need. All right, so let's go back. Okay, so going back to Wazoo. All right, and see, let's refresh this because that number should change now. All right, and let's see. All right, now that we're jumped up to 1362 events. All right, so I'm going to click on, so in this agent we're looking specifically for Alex PC, all events related to that. All right, so I'm going to click that, and let's see. If I click on the events tab, we should be able to see it. All right, see right here. All right, so let me see if I can extend this. So we can see that the rule level has been set to 10. And there is the flag. All right, so FTP client execution detected on Alex's machine. All right, so that's going to alert the SOC team or the analysts that are monitoring the different processes. And if FTP is a no-no, again, for some odd reason, it's being left open and not just closed. And and company policy is that no one uses FTP. Well, we want to set an alert to know if someone uses FTP, because this could honestly be a user, maybe an insider threat, intentional or unintentionally using FTP instead of a more secure transfer protocol such as SSH, or it can be an indicator of compromise where somebody may be in Alex's PC or maybe on our network and using FTP because they seen it as, you know, a vulnerability, you know, that they can take advantage of. All right, so that's how we can create a rule within Wazoo to be able to flag that type of hate behavior. And also prior, that's also we can use a packet sniffer such as Wireshark to be able to pick up on any sort of FTP use and be able to see what was done as the blue team. As the red team, we again, that's something that we don't want them to be able to do, because just like we were able to see the clear text username and password and files, uh, well, an attacker would be able to see that too. And again, and they will also be able to extract those files from that packet capture. All right. So it's one reason why at the end of the day it's best practice just to lock down FTP by default, to save us the trouble having to use Wireshark to look for processes related to it, or to create rules within Wazoo in order to flag it if it is used. All right. So that brings me to the end of my video here. So I just wanted to show that preventing data exfiltration, how vital it is for protecting sensitive data, maintaining trust, and ensuring compliance and avoiding financial loss. All right. So unauthorized data, transfers, it can expose the customer's details and intellectual property and lead to identity theft and damage of reputation. All right, so those are some things to take away from this. Please like, share, and subscribe. Most importantly, show your work, and be sure to check out INE and its cybersecurity services, such as its training and its certification offerings. Again, be able to level up your cybersecurity skills to increase your demand with employers. So until next time, take care of yourself, and God bless.